Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's Lunch and Learn on the Capital Connection Guidebook walkthrough. My name is Jasmine Smith. I am the Senior Public Policy Advisor here at Child Care Aware of America, and I will be your presenter for today's topic. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few webinar logistics. There will be a question and answer time slot for the last 10 to 15 minutes of this presentation. Please use the chat or question box function for all of your questions or concerns. Phone lines and microphones will be muted for the duration of this webinar. This presentation will be recorded, and the recording will be available on the Lunch and Learn webinar page on the Child Care Aware of America website early next week. So just look out for a follow-up email with a link to the recording for me next week. Okay, so now that we got all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Okay. So I'm glad you guys were able to join today. We put this book, the Capital Connection Guidebook, together every year for a symposium. It's meant as a resource for symposium attendees and also for members for doing advocacy efforts back home, as well as when they're here visiting their members of Congress. So I'm going to go through the various pieces of the guidebook with you and show you where to find it in its entirety on our website. Also, I'll show you where you can find the individual pages, which we refer to as one-pagers on the issues covered in the guidebook. So we'll first talk about what it is, its content, where you can find it on the website, and how you can use it as a resource to advocate. So the guidebook is going to be your resource for everything policy and everything child care. It has information related to the issues you care about and basic background information on the different federal processes that you need to know about in order to make informed decisions about your advocacy efforts. The first section of the guidebook is about understanding the various processes in Congress or which Congress uses to consider bills and make funding decisions. What's great about the guidebook is that it breaks down the processes in Congress into very easy to understand one-pagers. For example, there are some pieces on how a bill becomes a law, which goes over the legislative process step by step, from the first step of introducing a bill to when it is referred to a committee, to hearings, markups, etc., to when it is delivered to the president for signature. Another section is related to the budget and appropriations process. And as you know, the whole process of considering funding for bills can be quite complicated. But the guidebook breaks it down so that each component of the budget process is laid out in an easy-to-understand format. And so, how many appropriation bills are there? There are 12. Which one do we really care the most about? And that is the Labor, HHS, and Education Appropriations Bill. And why is that? Because it's the bill that contains funding for child care and other early childhood programs. And so the guidebook explains all of that. So the guidebook is more than just a summary of processes. So part 2 of the guidebook is about building relationships with Congress. It's also about, how can you, it's like a how-to on advocacy, how to contact members of Congress, who the leaders are in Congress, who the women legislators are, the minorities in Congress, and also you will find that there is a bunch of different committee rosters for the key committees that really have jurisdiction over the child care and related issues that we care about. And so we list and have all of these things in here because we want you to become more involved in advocacy and contacting members of Congress to either educate them and their staff about child care in their community or their state, or to sort of advocate for certain bills like background checks for child care providers or measures designed to strengthen the quality of child care. Okay, and so part 3 of the guidebook is about mastering the issues. This is probably this is the largest section of the guidebook. So as you can see here, I have some information about our policy agenda, also the one-pagers on our key issues in our policy agenda, training, inspections, background checks, and it also has here information about key child care legislation. So that's the Child Care and Development Block Grant and temporary assistance for needy families. So as I said before, there are lots of one-pagers in our issue sections, which in an easy-to-understand format explains the basics about these issues. So this is a continuation of part 3. There's also information in here about Child Care Aware of America's research. And so as you can see here, some of our more popular research reports. We Can Do Better is a report that just, a biannual report. We just released it this year. Leaving Children to Chance, another biannual report, and we released that last year during symposium in our Parents and the High Cost of Child Care report. And along with the rest of our research reports, we have one-pagers on each of those in the guidebook in this particular section. The one-pagers are really helpful to understand the main points and can be used in many different ways. For example, you can use it to learn more about the issues, to fill in a memo or background briefing, to help explain to others why an issue is important, to respond to press questions about the background of an issue, and to give to policymakers to help them better understand the issues as well. So these resources are here and available to you. You can cut and paste for them and use them however you desire. And so we also have information about child care issue background. So information from federal agencies and other reports from other organizations. We have that also in this subsection under the Mastering the Issues area. So this section is also related to all of the work that we do, the cheat sheets around areas for background issues on our key child care issues. For example, we have information in here on how many children are in child care, how many women are working while their children are in care, related studies that might be released by other organizations or federal agencies, as I mentioned. And also new to this section this year, we included some one-pagers about our white papers on the different topics, such as sudden infant death syndrome, background checks, and also child care subsidy. So also in this section, from time to time, federal agencies such as the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services may release guidance to the states. And the guidance, as you know, or information memorandums are not laws, but they are recommendations urging states to undertake certain actions. For example, in this memorandum, I think it's the background checks one, HHS has urged states to require comprehensive background checks to ensure that child care providers do not have a history of violence. And so as you can see, there's another example here of the continuity of care. So this is a brief subsection, but this is the information that's included in there. Okay. And so this is the last section of the guidebook. It's our appendix section. Because we released this book at Symposium for Advocacy purposes, it also contains information much like a directory for folks visiting offices. It also has useful websites listed here. Also, it's not listed or it's not shown here on the screen, but we also have information on commonly used federal legislative terms. Also, as you can see here, there's a map of the House and Senate office buildings. And also new to this section is our social media resources. And so it's kind of like a one-pager on our social media information available to everyone. Okay, and so here are just a few of the areas where you can find different slices of the guidebook on our website. Actually, so if I were to click on here, it would pull up our policy, library, and recent reports page. And you can get to this just by, if you're on the home page of our website, you go over to the Public Policy tab. You want to click on that. And then you want to go down to Resources on your right-hand side. And then you want to click on Policy, Library, and Recent Reports. Okay, and so on this page, if you scroll down just a little bit here, in the Resources section, you will see a link to the full Capital Connection Guidebook. And so you can actually download it and print it off. And so if we go back to the slide here, sorry. You can also find, so we have in the guidebook our comprehensive agenda. So if you go to back to the Public Policy tab, under that tab there's going to be a section, Policy Agenda. And you click on that and you can get the policy agenda in brief and also the full agenda, which is not in the guidebook, just the agenda in brief is in the guidebook. Also, for those specific issue 1 pagers, if you go to our, again, under our Public Policy tab and you go to Policy Issues, you click on Core Policy Issues and it takes you to our Core Policy Issues section, where you can just click on one of the issues here. We'll just click on background check. And it pulls up a page with information strictly on background checks. So it gives you, just the gist of everything, where we stand. It has an action item here, background information. If you want to, know more about the subject, dive a little deeper, there's information here, resources, data tables, all of that. And also some news here that populates related to background checks. Okay? And so all of the issue pages, all the key issue pages have those similar pages. You can also find information from the guidebook in our policy resources area, which we kind of browse through a little bit. And so you would go, again, through the policy, library, and recent reports area. And also these gateways here will provide you with additional information. For instance, the public policy agenda, which I mentioned here. Okay? All right. And so we also have a section on our website that's not under public policy. That's called the About Child Care section. And so in that section, there's going to be the information related to the child care workforce and working mothers. So if we were to, go back to the website there. So as you can see, the information is here, and how you would get to this page relatively easy. So if you're at the home page, you go to About Child Care, and you scroll down to Workforce, and here's the information. And so these are kind of the slices. Some of them are from the guidebook. Okay? I think now that we've talked about what the guidebook is, the wealth of information it entails, and we know, where to find it in its entirety and all of the various pieces that's included in the guidebook now on the website. So now let's talk about, how to use the guidebook as a resource to advocate. So as you can see here, I have, Chapter Aware of America's issue one-pagers. So you have the issue one-pagers to provide you with concise foundational information on a particular issue so that you are informed and confident when you meet with key members of Congress and other stakeholders on the issues, right? And so, in the guidebook, there's you also, before you go and meet with members of Congress and staff members, you should take a look at the key House and Senate committees that we have in the guidebook to figure out which committee has jurisdiction over the issues that you want to advocate for. And then use the tips for contacting members of Congress to help you with the initial request for a meeting, right? And so, a part of contacting Congress and building those relationships and just making sure that they see that you're concerned and know what your concerns are. If you're more interested in supporting current grassroots efforts and you would much rather, send them an email or do it online, there is an opportunity for that as well. We have our Legislative Online Action Center, and so this is just another way for you to reach out to your members of Congress and contact them on issues that you care about. So if we were to go back to our website and see here it says Take Action, it takes us to our Legislative Online Action Center, and we're always running a campaign on specific issues. So right now, our feature alert is about not cutting child care and making sure that, members of Congress know that it's important that they, that the sequester doesn't affect child care and, that it really supports working families. And so if you clicked on here, it would take you to that alert, and all you would have to do is really fill in your contact information. If you wanted to put more personal information in here or a personal story, you can, but this is just another way for you to, reach out to your members of Congress and keep in contact with them on those issues, and even follow up after you send it. You can follow up directly because they should send you an email once you've sent them a letter about your concerns. So, okay. So, like I said, that was just that was just another way to show you how to contact your members of Congress and how to begin building those key relationships with your members. And so that is basically all that I have for you today. If you guys have any questions, please use the chat box function. So that will conclude today's presentation. But again, if you guys have any questions, please use the chat box function or the question box function. Also, while you guys are thinking of some questions, I did want to let you know that the recording of this Lunch and Learn will be available on our Lunch and Learn page. And so if we quickly go there, I can show you exactly where this will be located. Sorry about that. So if you go to the Public Policy tab, click on Policy Webinars, Lunch and Learn webinar series, and here is where there will be a list of upcoming webinars and also archived webinars here. Okay. And so as I mentioned, we always have a running action alerts and campaigns to strengthen child care. So if you're interested in getting alerts about that, I'm going to show you where you can go to sign up. So if you're on our home page here, if you want to click on the Take Action tab here, and there's a hyperlink here that says Join Our Action Network. If you click on that, here's the sign-up page. Please make sure that you check off on Capital Connection or the Action Network here. So if you click off on Capital Connection, you'll receive a newsletter, but in that newsletter, there's always an action item. So there's always one of our action alerts or action campaigns. So we'll wait a couple of minutes for additional questions. Okay, well, it looks like there are no additional questions coming in, so I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you for joining for today's Lunch and Learn, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Look out for a follow-up email from either myself, Jasmine Smith, or Sarah Miller. Thank you again for joining. Goodbye.